What's good, math family? In today's video, we're going to look at how to properly solve open-ended response questions on the Algebra 1 EOC exam and the Algebra 1 Regents exam. Let's get started. Problem number 1 is asking us to determine the interval where speed is constant. When we look at this graph, we'll notice that on the x-axis, time is being measured, and on the y-axis, speed in miles per hour is being measured. So from 0 to 4 minutes, this line is increasing, meaning that the speed is increasing. When we look at from 5 to 9 minutes, the line stays constant because the speed stays constant. And then from about 9 to 10 minutes, speed is decreasing. So when they ask us an interval where the speed is constant, it could be anywhere between when 5 minutes and 9 minutes. So I'll tell you to use the intervals in the middle, such as 6 to 7 or even 7 to 8. You could also put 5 to 6, but you only need one interval. They ask us, explain your reasoning. Speed is the same. Or you could even put constant at 35 miles per hour. Always include your units just to be on the safe side. But this is how you will solve a problem like this for problem number 1. Problem number 2, they give us a quadratic function and they want us to graph it. So we know there's key points that we need to graph, such as the y-intercept, x-intercepts, and the axis of symmetry, aka the vertex. So if we make both of those x's 0, y is going to be equal to 3 for the y-intercept. So that's the first point we could plot. Now what we want to do is just set this equation equal to 0 so that we could factor it and get our roots or our x-intercepts. So we'll break this down as x plus 3 times x plus 1 is equal to 0. Please make sure you set them equal to 0 or you're going to have the incorrect sign. X plus 3 is equal to 0, so my first x-intercept is -3, which will be right here. And then when I go back and repeat this process for x plus 1 is equal to 0, the second x-coordinate, or x-intercept, I should say, x is equal to -1. Now what we want to do is figure out what is the vertex and the axis of symmetry. And to do that, we're going to do the opposite of b over 2a. And that's just from the quadratic formula, right? So y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So b is going to be 4. The opposite of that is -4 divided by 2 times a. There's no coefficient, so we assume it's 1. So we know that the axis of symmetry, or the x-coordinate, is going to be x is equal to -2. So that is the answer when it tells us to state the equation of the axis of symmetry. It always goes with the x variable. Please remember that. Now for us to get the vertex, we needed to plug this back in. So y is equal to -2 squared plus 4 times -2 plus 3. So once we simplify, family, what we're going to get is a -1. So the vertex is going to be at -2, -1. That is the last point we're missing to successfully graph this. So that is right here. So we could create our parabola, but just remember that we do want at least one more point to match this one, right, that I highlighted. And if we notice from the vertex, we went over 2 and then up 4. So if I do that on the opposite side, we could find the adjacent point because the axis of symmetry cuts the parabola in half. So if I go to the left 2 and then up 4, the next point I will plot would be right here. Now I could draw my parabola through these points, and this is how you would solve and answer this type of problem where we graph a parabola. Problem number 3 is a very simple problem, but you just have to make sure you read and take your time. They're not asking us to determine the slope. So we're not using the equation M is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. If they ask for the slope, we would use that. What they're asking for is, hey, what value could we plug into this table that would allow it to still be a function? And we just have to remember that when we're talking about linear functions, there should be, the x should not repeat. X should only show up one time, and each x should only have one y. So when we look here, the best next value would be 7. We could put 8, we could put 9, or even 10 because those x values aren't there. But I would just say, hey, pick the next highest number, which would be 7. They ask us to explain our reasoning. Very simple. We could say for each value of x, there is one value for y. And that's all you need to explain. For each x, there is exactly one y. And this is how you would solve a problem like this, where we're dealing with identifying functions. Question number 4, we're dealing with completing the square. And sometimes they'll give it to you in this format where they isolate the c, but many times they won't. So if they gave it to you like this, x squared plus 8x minus 33 is equal to 0, just remember your first step is to isolate the c. And with these type of problems, there's 2 things we need to know. B divided by 2 and B divided by 2 squared. These 2 short formulas are going to help us complete the square. So after our first step, when we isolate that c, we'll have 8x squared plus 8x is equal to 33. Now for us to find the c value, we take half of the middle term, which is 8. So that's 4. We square it to get 16. So this is what we add on both sides. Now for us to get the binomial that will give us this trinomial when we square, we're going to just take b and divide it by 2. So to get this trinomial, we would have x plus 4 squared. And then we could simplify the other side down to 49. Now, for us to successfully solve this, we have to get rid of the exponent by taking the square root of it, and we do the same thing on the other side. So they cancel each other out, the exponent and radical, and this is equal to the square root of 49, so plus or minus 7. And now what we want to do is isolate the x. So after we subtract, this is what we should have. And then we could express our answer. So x is equal to negative 4 plus 7, meaning the first x is equal to 3. Or x is equal to negative 4 minus 7, meaning x is equal to negative 11. And this is how you complete the square to solve a quadratic equation. Moving on to question number 5. And if this video has been helpful, family, don't forget to smash the like button for us. They want us to determine the value of x when f of x is equal to negative 22. And before we start, I need you to understand that this is different than evaluating the function from when x is equal to negative 22, or the input, I should say. So what they want us to do, right, let's write the function out, is determine what is the x value that we would plug in that will give us 22 for the y, aka the output. So we're working backwards. So to solve, we're going to multiply both sides by 2. So we have negative 3x minus 5 is equal to negative 22 times 2, which is negative 44. We're going to add 5 on both sides. So, negative 3x is equal to negative 39. And then once we divide to figure out what our x is, we know x is going to be equal to positive 13. So when we plug in 13 for x in this function, this is the x that is going to give us negative 22 when we simplify for the y. Problem number 6, we're dealing with rationalizing the denominator. And this is very simple when we just have one term in the denominator. So all we have to do right here is just multiply by the same number, or the same radical, I should say. So what happens is the top, or the numerator, is going to turn into 4 radical 2 all over 2. And then because this is a fraction, we just need to simplify. So our final answer would be 2 radical 2. Now, before we go on to the next question, what I want to do is go over if this was a radical that was a binomial. So if you had something like radical 2 plus 1. If this were the case, what you would have to do is the same thing, but we would multiply by the conjugate, meaning radical 2 minus 1. It's the same exact expression, just the sign changes. And we do the same thing in the top part of the fraction. So once I distribute in the top part of the fraction, we're going to get 4 radical 2 minus 4. And then when we look down at the denominator, please remember that this is the difference of squares. The middle terms are going to cancel out. So we could just focus on first 2 terms and last 2 terms and multiplying them. So radical 2 times radical 2 is just 2. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. When we simplify, we'll have 4 radical 2 minus 4 all over 1. So we don't need that 1. We could just leave it like how you see on my screen. And this is how you would solve and rationalize if we had a binomial in the denominator. Please make sure you know how to do both of these because you're likely to see one or the other. In the next example, they want us to create a systems of equations and determine the amount of nickels and dimes. So when we look at the statement, Alex had $1.70 in nickels and dimes on his desk. There were 25 coins in all. So we know that N stands for nickels and then the D stands for dimes. So the first equation I will come up with was just the one that says 25 coins in all. So we have a certain amount of nickels plus a certain amount of dimes, and we know they're going to be 25 in all. That's equation number 1. Equation number 2 is going to be equal to the $1.70. And if we think about nickels and dimes, a nickel is 5 cents. So the equation is going to start off 0.05 N plus 0.1 D is equal to the $1.70. So this is the systems of equations that we're trying to solve. We got equation 1 and 2. Now, when we come down here and we're about to solve, your teacher may tell you this, they may not, but this is up to you. I would take the second equation and probably multiply it by, I'd probably say by 100 so that we don't have decimals. So the second equation would turn into 5D, I'm sorry, family, 5N. 5N plus 10D is equal to 170. And this is just so that we don't have to work with decimals. So the best way to solve with this, I would say, is to use substitution. So let's say we solved for the N variable. So we subtracted D. So N is equal to 25 minus D. We're going to take this expression and plug it into equation number 2. So we have 5 times N, but N now is 25 minus D plus 10D is equal to 170. So let's scroll a little bit. When we simplify this, this is what we're going to get. We're going to get 125 minus 5D plus 10D is equal to 170. We simplify, so we're going to have 125 plus 5D is equal to 170. At this step, we're going to combine our like terms, so we're going to subtract 125 from both sides. So we have 5D is equal to 45. So we divide, we know D is going to be equal to 9. Now that we got the amount of dimes that we have, we could go back and get the nickels. And I would just tell you, plug it into the very first equation in red. So we know n plus 9 is equal to 25. After we subtract 9, we know n is going to be equal to 16. So when we solve this, we know that the individual is going to have 16 nickels, and then they're going to also have 9 dimes. In the next example, they want us to basically solve the systems of equations. And this one is a little different from what we'll normally see because we have one quadratic equation and then we have a linear equation. And if you pay attention to how the equation's set, you'll notice that they isolated a variable. So the best method to solve would be substitution. So we'll set both equations equal to each other. X squared minus 7x plus 12 is equal to 2x minus 6. So now what we're going to do is combine these two expressions together and then factor if possible. So after I subtract 2x, we're going to have x squared minus 9x plus 12 is equal to negative 6. We're going to add 6 on both sides. X squared minus 9x plus 18 is equal to 0. So this is what we want to focus on factoring right now. Once we factor, what we're going to get is x minus 6 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. And you guys know what I'm going to tell you. Set both factors equal to 0. So we know x is equal to positive 6 for our first answer. And in the second factor, x is going to be equal to positive 3. Now just be mindful. We have to now go back and plug these x's in. And I'm going to tell you, plug it into the linear equation. So y is equal to 2 times our first answer, 6 minus 6. So y is equal to 12 minus 6, y is 6. So our first ordered pair, or the first solution where these two graphs are going to meet, is that the ordered pair 6, 6. If we go back and repeat the process with our second answer, y is equal to 2 times 3 minus 6. 6 minus 6 is going to give us a 0. So the second order pair is going to be at 3, 0. Please be mindful with this because a lot of students are going to stop in red where they have x is equal to 6, x is equal to 3. That's incomplete because we're looking for ordered pairs where these two lines or parabolas cross, and we also have to get the y coordinate. They give us a quadratic equation and they want us to use the quadratic formula. And if you remember, the quadratic formula is x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So what we need to do is just plug in and simplify. So x is equal to the opposite of b. B is positive 4, so negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3 all over 2 times a. We know a is just 1. When we simplify what's under the radical, what we're going to get is 16 plus 12 all over 2. All right, we're going to bring this up to the top. X is equal to negative 4 plus or minus radical 28 all over 2. And anytime you use this formula, guys, we're going to have to break down radicals. So please make sure that you review how to break down radicals. So this radical could break down as radical 4 times 7. Take out the perfect square. This is going to turn into 2 radical 7. So we'll have x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus 2 radical 7 all over 2. A lot of students are going to stop right here And this answer would be incorrect. And the reason why is because as a fraction, we are able to reduce. So if we reduce, we're going to have x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus radical 7. There is no need for us to put a 1 in front of that radical 7. Please be mindful at the end if you have to break down the radical or divide or reduce the fraction to lowest terms. Last problem of this video, family, and if you found it helpful, we're going to ask that you smash the like button or comment down below so we could put out more helpful content. We have systems of equations, and they tell us that Anna plans to spend $30 on balloons and party hats, right? They tell us that the balloons cost $2 each and the party hats cost $1.50 each. So let's just start off by identifying what the variable stands for. So the x variable are going to be for the balloons, and the y variable are going to be for the party hats. So when we look closely at the equation, it says that she spends $2 for each balloon, right? But we don't know the amount of balloons, so we're going to use x to represent that. Plus 150 for the party hats. Don't know how many, so we're going to use y to represent it. And we know that she plans on spending $30. So that's equation number 1. Then it says the number of party hats Anna needs is twice as many as the number of balloons. So when we create that equation, we know the hats is equal to twice the amount of balloons. So that would be the second equation. So we wrote the systems of equation, and now what they want us to do is graph both of them and determine what is the solution. So what we want to do is take equation number 1 and let's put it in slope-intercept form so that we could graph it. So we have 1.50y is equal to negative 2x plus 30. All right, we're going to isolate the y by divided by 1.5. So what we're going to get is y is equal to, and when we reduce 2 over 1.5, we're going to get negative 4 over 3x. And then 30 divided by 1.5 is going to give us 20. So this is the equation we want to graph, and this is the second equation. So when we graph the first equation in red, when x is 0, we know that y is 20. And I would tell you, family, just use your rise over run, which is 4 over 3. So if I go down 4 and go over 3, this is going to be a second point. If I repeat this process, we'll have another point right here, and then one more right here. So this is the first line, and this is for y is equal to negative 4x plus 20. So let's connect the points now. Then we go back, and what we're going to do is graph the second one. So when x is 0, we know y is 0. And then we could also use the rise over run of 2 over 1. So what's going to happen is we're going to go up 2 over 1. So we have a point here. We'll have one here. And just to be mindful, family, you don't need as much points, but I just want to do that just to be on the safe side so we know that our graph is as accurate as possible. So now that we drew both lines, what we're looking for is the point of intersection. The point of intersection represents the solution to the systems of equations. And this is going to be at 6, 12. So if they ask us for the solution or where they intersect, it's going to be at 612. So now they say, explain what each coordinate means in the context of the problem. So guys, just make sure you pay attention to the X and Y axis. So based on the available money that she has, these are the different possible solutions. So when we look at ours, what's happening is she's going to have, or we could say that Anna bought 6 balloons, right? Because that's what this says, and 12 party hats. This is what that coordinate means. And it's very important for you to understand because this is what they mean when they say interpret the problem in a real world context. We really hope that this video review on open-ended responses for the Algebra 1 EOC and the Algebra 1 Reasoning exams was helpful for you, math family. If it was, don't forget to smash the like button for us, subscribe to our channel, and leave comments down below if you had questions on this video or if there's other topics you'd like to see on our channel. Thank you guys so much for continuing to watch and support Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters.